radio is broadcast on LSL Podcast Channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
Well, that was exciting. We had a dinner last night. It looks like they got the ice cream thing settled, though. Joe Manchin from West Virginia and Joe Donnelly was there. We had a lot of the Blue Dog Democrats, to the extent that it still exists. They're in red states, and they're vulnerable because these are states that, of course, Trump won. Heidi Heitkamp, North Dakota. And they all got together. They broke bread. John Thune was there. John Thune, actually, he understood what the dessert was all about.
The ice cream was so perfectly shaped, I thought it was an egg.
So John Thune was on MSNBC after and said, well, no, actually it was pretty clear to me that it was ice cream. Well, this is the level of questions we're getting on MSNBC and the level of commentary. We do things a little differently at Fox. We actually ask questions that matter. But how many of you have faith that the Republicans, 8.5 months into this administration, are going to actually deliver a tax reform bill to the president that he can sign? How many of you think that? I mean, after the last 24 hours, I mean, I'm not sure. I was kind of optimistic, but at this point, I'm just not sure. What John Thune kept saying today on MSNBC was that, well, we'll have a framework in 2 weeks. 2 weeks? They've had 8.5 months. 8.5 months, and they still don't have a framework for tax reform, but at least John Thune knows it was ice cream and not an egg. There are a lot of metaphors here. Ice cream, eggs, the beginning of life. Are we seeing the beginning of life or the end of life for the Republican Party? I think we're seeing the end of life for the old Republican Party. That's the good thing here. And if you don't get on the Trump train, if you don't get on the train of conservative populism, where sometimes you'll cut deals with the Democrats because the Republicans just aren't getting it done, then you're just going to get run over. You're going to get run over by the train. That's what's going to happen. And
I've seen this kind of a strudel. It was an apple strudel, but I says, I've never seen an egg come with it.
The question on the table is, are these people, any of these people, good at politics? Do they know how to do politics? Are they interested in serving the interests of the American people, or are they just interested in going to the White House and having dinner? Now, I kind of like Joe Manchin. I mean, as Democrats go, he should just flip and become a Republican. What Trump should say to those three last night and just say, let's make it official. All three of you, here's your party registration forms. We went ahead and filled them out for you in each of your states. So we all did it in Indiana, Michigan, North Dakota. We've already filled out your party registration forms. You just have to sign them, become Republicans. Your party is still mired back into Hillary Clinton, which we're going to get to in a minute. You guys are still stuck back in the past. We're moving forward. Populism is the only way to go. We're still fighting over the election results in Democrat circles. But they break bread, and I'm glad the president had them. And maybe we'll have some sound from the Today Show interview with Hillary in a minute. But maybe we'll have some sound from the MSNBC conversation about tax reform. Maybe, just maybe. I'm gonna hold you all in great suspense here. But these guys break bread. 3 Republicans. You got Mnuchin. You got Gary Cohn there last night. And you know what the president keeps saying to these people? When are you going to get it done? What's taking so long? Then Thune goes on MSNBC and says, well, in 2 weeks, we might have a framework. You've had 8.5 months. Think of what the great geniuses throughout our history have created in 8.5 months. The paintings they've painted. The buildings they've built. The inventions they've created, they've come up with.
8.5 months. They've had 8.5 years.
Years, thank you.
Let's correct ourselves here. 8.5 years they've had in the wilderness to come up with a plan. Nothing.
And I love this. We're going to do hearings and then release the framework. No. I want to see that framework now. I want to know who's getting what where. And then they made this big thing, made this big point on MSNBC today with John Thune. And they said, well, the middle class is going to get most of the tax cuts. The upper level income earners might get a slight rate reduction, but they're going to lose all their deductions. I don't really care about that. I personally think it should be a flat tax.
Right.
I personally think you should get, or just go back to the fair tax. I'm sick of this IRS, and you know what's going to happen. I don't care what anyone's saying now. You know what's going to happen. The lobbyists get their hands on the framework, and then the framework gets decorated with all these hideous ornaments. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be a tree that's going to be decorated with all sorts of gross, heavy ornaments. That's going to weigh down the purity of all of this, which is simplification, reduction, and pulling back the power of government over our lives. That is the whole point of conservative populism. Get the power out of Washington and give it back to the people. And that means let the people keep more of their own money.
But this work was already done. Stephen Moore and Larry Kudlow did this work during the campaign. Pull that plan, and then, come up with your framework in a day, and then, get it on the floor.
And then, by the way, what was also said was, I'll just do the sound bites because we don't have them for some reason. So I'm just gonna mimic the sound bites on my own show, which is really, So this is what happens. Joe Scarborough says, well, what about the president? Is he going to get more engaged? What are you talking about? They already came up with their tax plan. Thank you very much.
And he's going on the road all week.
He's hitting 13 states. What is Joe? See, Joe Scarborough's now caught because all he's been doing is demonizing Donald Trump. For the last 8 months, Trump's evil, Trump's horrible, Trump's a racist, Trump's a nativist, Trump hates immigrants, That's all he does. And so now what happens is Trump is on the move. I want it now. Where is it? Let's go. He's impatient. He wants these results yesterday. Do you know what? Trump's with the people. The people want the results yesterday. They don't want the results another year from now. Mitch McConnell's sending signals that maybe the whole thing can't get done this year. You know something? That he should move on. Go work at a Kentucky bourbon factory or distillery. Whatever you need to do, go work at the Churchill Downs. I don't know what, clean stalls, whatever you have to do. But you are not in a position to be Senate Majority Leader after all these years in the wilderness when you had time to deliver these goods for the American people. And you want more time? I don't think so.
Laura, you've been very negative now, Laura.
I don't think so. But Joe Scarborough, well, is the president going to be more engaged? He's going to 13 states. He's having the Democrats over. He had Nancy over. He had Chuck over.
He's having dinners every night.
What more can the man do? Oh, no. I saw that today. I was like, you're fresh out of ideas, Joe. MSNBC now doesn't know which way to go because now we have, thanks, guys. Now we have the fantastic bipartisan moves that now, you notice all the Republicans now are saying, we're actually thinking that was a good thing. Do you see Thune today and all these people? Well, I hope he does more of that. Last week it was, I can't believe the president, Mitch McConnell's hound dog face, his chin all the way down to the ground. He was so upset. Now the Republicans see where Trump's popularity numbers are going. His numbers are going up, theirs are going down. He's up at 46%, they're at 15. I'm not a math whiz, but I think that's about 31 points different. Okay, so you guys are in the toilet. You better get it done. And how many of you think Donald Trump will be blamed if the Republicans don't deliver tax reform this year? Will Donald Trump be blamed, or will the Republicans in Congress be blamed? And I'm going to tell you, he will do more deals with Democrats. 1, 2, 3. You're going to start seeing these things add up. He's going to do infrastructure with the Democrats. He's going to do more work on other types of deregulatory legislation that helps economic growth in certain districts, Democrat districts. He's going to get stuff done. And I think these Republicans are on the verge of being left behind. They're left behind where Jeb Bush and George W. Bush are right now. Just irrelevant.
It's going to make these upcoming elections in 2018 unbelievable.
We're going to take a break.
He could go either way.
We're going to take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show. 855-40-LAURA. Hillary Clinton goes on the Today Show, other media outlets, as she sachets into various bookstores to do book signing events. So what's that designer who makes those big Star Trek collars she uses? Those
Vera Wang? Is it Vera Wang?
Is it Vera Wang?
Who it is.
She's a big lefty. Those big collars that are like
looks like Baby Snooks. Remember Baby Snooks, that old character that Fanny Bryce used to play with a big collar?
It's a big
and it's
oval.
A big triangle dress.
It's
like
a big
baby
oval.
doll.
It's like
doesn't work.
It's like one of those characters in the New Zoo Review. We'll take a break. Don't go away. The people at LifeLock wanted to remind you that there's a lot more to identity theft than you might have thought. Monitoring your credit or checking your bank statements may offer you some protection, but they only offer a limited view of what's actually going on with your identity. You may not be able to detect if your personal information is for sale on the dark web, or if someone gets a payday loan in your name, or even if a thief takes over your 401k. But that's why there's LifeLock. They use proprietary technology to alert you to a wider range of ID threats. And if you have a problem, one of their U.S.-based identity restoration specialists will work to fix it. Of course, no one can prevent all ID theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses, but with LifeLock, you can see more ID threats than you may otherwise miss. Join now and get 10% off by using promo code Laura. Call them at 800-LifeLock. That's 1-800-LifeLock, or head to lifelock.com and use the promo code Laura. That's Laura to save 10% now at lifelock.com. When it comes to topical pain relievers, stores are full of Me Too products. They're the ones that warm, the ones that cool, the ones that claim to numb you. But there's only one Australian Dream arthritis pain relief cream. Australian Dream is real medicine that effectively relieves arthritis pain, and it's backed by an empty jar guarantee. Use the entire jar? Not happy? Send it back for a full refund. Get back to feeling normal again with Australian Dream. Australian Dream Arthritis Pain Relief Cream. Find it at Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, and... I just like, this is ridiculous. Is he engaged? How about you people? You've been in... How long has John Thune... I helped him get elected in 2002. My first full year in radio. I like John Thune. He's from South Dakota. Remember who he deep sixed? Tom Daschle. That was a Daschle seat. See, I actually know stuff, so I actually remember this stuff. Tom Daschle seat, he came in and blew them all away. Okay? Thune is a great guy. He got sucked in a little bit by the establishment on some of these issues, however. John Thune, I said from the beginning, could have been a leader, a real leader, and he could turn populist and take, I'm telling you, he could take this whole conversation over. He actually is smart. But this can't be this, well, we're going to release a framework in a few... Donald Trump was engaged. Donald Trump has been more engaged on the issues of economics, from trade to China to NAFTA to regulatory to tax reform, than I can remember any president in my lifetime. Going back to Reagan. Reagan knew the broad strokes. Trump wants answers. And from what I gather in my own reporting on this in these meetings, you don't have an answer for him? Oh, not pretty. Not pretty. Not pretty on what it's going to do to wages, GDP, how it's going to affect the national debt, the issue with the budget deficit. He wants numbers. He wants specifics. He wants substance. He's calling people to account as he should. He doesn't have to know every chart and every... No, that's not what the president's supposed to know. But these guys who are on the Senate Budget Committee and on the Tax Reform Writing Committee, you bet your bottom dollar they should know what the heck's going on. It's very frustrating. That's frustrating. Not as frustrating as what we heard on the Today Show today.
And Paul Ryan and Nancy Pelosi are meeting today about DACA, which I know will warm.
Oh no! We have a big curtain pull on DACA. The hooey that you need to ignore about the Dreamers, how great all the Dreamers are. They're great. They're the most perfect human beings. They're
protecting you in the military.
Oh no, they're working in the military. The Dreamers are the best of the best, the creme de la creme. The Dreamers. We'll tell you what the truth is about the Dreamers. I'm sure we have some great people sprinkled in among the Dreamers, but we have a lot of great Americans who are out of work. A lot of great Americans who can't get educational opportunities, can't get into college, are in debt, are trying to dig their way out of it. But we have some Dreamer stories for you. That's coming up on the Laura Ingraham Show. But that walk. There's that Hillary walk where it's weebles.
Weeble.
Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. But Hillary did fall down. That's the problem.
Several times.
Yeah, the Weebles wobble and they do fall down, and then they end up on the Today Show.
I gave birth 9 months ago, and afterwards they come to you and they say, how's your pain? Scale to 10, 1 to 10. How's your pain? So I thought, let's start there. How's your pain? How are you doing?
Well, it's gone down the scale. I mean, it was probably 25 when the election ended in such a surprising and for me, distressing way.
So it was a lot of pain. Well, yeah, it's a lot of pain for the Democrats to hear this story told all over again.
You know, this public cleanse, as Matt Lauer referred to it, he called it is this a literary cleanse? This public cleanse, you get the feeling that she's doing this for her own therapeutic ends. It's not about you or the voter. It's all about her.
People are using words to describe this book that they don't normally use in association with you. Unrestrained, very candid. People say you've taken your political straitjacket off and been unleashed a little bit to say what you really wanted to say. Did you view it as a historic document, or did you view it as kind of a literary version of a cleanse for you?
Matt, both. I really saw it as both personal and historical. It started out, for me, trying to just come to grips with what happened and to be as candid as I could with myself. That's where it had to start. But then also to look at it in a historic frame and say, what was at work here?
What was at work? What were the nefarious forces at work to have her fall into her sedan on the 9/11 ceremony?
You know what's heartbreaking about this? You have a grown woman, a political woman who's been in politics her whole life, unable to come to terms with reality and her own culpability, like her email server. And maybe that had something to do with her loss.
When we come back, Byron York on this and DACA. I understand that. But you can perk your hair back up with some Ovation Cell Therapy. Get some cool end of summer savings for a hot product. So what's so great about Ovation? Well, it's clinically proven to deliver thicker, stronger, healthier hair, visibly healthier, by the way. And those flyaways, no. Get rid of those. You need to use the Ovation Cell Therapy. It's the third bottle in your shower that you've been missing. Since I've been using Ovation Cell Therapy now for almost 2 years, my hair has gone from fairly fried from all the styling to really healthy. And people notice, the gals in makeup and hair notice, and listeners, viewers, people watch Fox, they notice. It's buyer-approved, Ovation guaranteed. Ovation really, really works. 15% off Ovation Cell Therapy now. And all you have to do is go to ovationhair.com. 15% off everything at Ovation. And you get the voluminizing products, the shampoo, great conditioners for all of your hair types. Hurry, 15% off. Use Laura Ingraham in that survey at checkout at ovationhair.com. And she reminds us of that laugh, too, that was so enticing during the... that she claims that James Comey was fired for all the wrong reasons. She basically thinks he should be fired. Or she said punished. We're going to send him to supper, bed without supper? What are you going to do to Comey?
For the handling of the email investigation. What email investigation, Hillary?
No, for the coming out and actually doing the non-indictment press conference. That's what she didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
But the Democrats have to hate this. This got to kill them. This has to kill them. The last thing they want to see is Hillary Clinton on television for like 3 days straight, and Trump loves it.
There's also nothing worse than someone wallowing in their pain,
it's very
loss,
unattractive.
defeat. There's a point where you just have to be quiet and go away.
I lay down on the hotel bed, and I grabbed a glass of Chardonnay, and I said, could this really be happening? I hadn't prepared a concession speech. I was ready for victory. So I went to sleep, said a prayer, woke up to my worst nightmare. I couldn't find Bill, as usual. I should have done my own audiobook for her.
What really happened?
What really happened? Raymond, we should write that up. Byron York of Washington Examiner is all over all this, including the Republicans are hopping on the most important issue that the voters in last November put on the top of their list as to why they want Donald Trump elected. That's what they're working on. DACA. Yeah, that's what they all turned out to vote for. And Byron's joining us now. Byron, how are you? Good to talk to you.
Doing well, and you?
61%, and according to the Rasmussen poll, says it's time for Hillary Clinton to retire. I can't believe the number's that low, but nevertheless, it's pretty interesting.
You know, this is interesting. Hillary Clinton is doing all this, and there's this new article in the Washington Post about House Democrats who are trying to win control of the House next year, getting madder and madder at their leadership because they don't have an agenda, and they feel like they have to have something more than just being against Trump to run on. And at the same time, you have the former leader of the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton, just coming out and replaying her complete loss. And by the way, I mean, she is doing exactly what they said Donald Trump would do if he lost, right? I mean, he's accepted
the results.
Accept the results of the election, but question them and try to undermine the legitimacy of the winner.
Well, I think that they pounded Trump in that third debate, remember? And the third debate after the Billy Bush tape came out, will you concede this election? And he said, well, we'll have to wait and see. Remember, he left them all in suspense, and they were outraged that he said that. Yeah. We'll just have to wait and see.
And she said she jumped in to say how outrageous that was, and that we have a democracy in you. So, I mean, and she's coming out, look, she says, he's the president. I accept the results of the election, but I question them and want to undermine them. Yeah.
But I want to move forward and undermine them at every turn. There was a moment, Byron, when in this Today Show interview, I think it's still going on. It was never ending.
Round robin.
Oh, my God. It was like everyone. The weather people were asking questions. It went on.
Hey, what was the weather pattern when you lost, Hillary? Al Roker jumped in.
Did the barometric pressure drop at the hotel at the Javits Center? There's a moment in this interview that reminded me of her comments in the heat and height of the Lewinsky scandal, when it was all about kind of the vast right-wing conspiracy.
We have 9 months of this presidency now.
Right.
If the election were held today, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton on the ballot again, would you win?
Oh, I don't know. I think that there's at least a 50-50 chance I would.
That's not the bite I wanted. It was a bite where she talked about the right-wing radicals, and I know we have it in the packet. It's number 4, but apparently we didn't play it. Let's listen.
There's a big move for change coming from the right that I think would be disastrous for our country. They want radical, pull them up by the roots change. They want to have a constitutional convention to rewrite our Constitution to make it friendlier to business, to inject, religious and ideological elements. So talk about radical change. They are pursuing it, they are funding it, and they are electing people who are either true believers or willing vehicles for it.
There we go. The vast right-wing conspiracy, Byron, backed by popular demand.
She's actually been the assignment desk for a certain group of reporters on the left for a long time, which was, here's what you ought to go out and cover. And the whole idea of the Constitutional Convention, that she would pull that out of her head, is really quite amazing.
Byron, what is happening now? Paul Ryan is huddling on Capitol Hill. I love when they huddle. And this time they're promising action on DACA. I guess what are they working on that before tax reform? Because that's really what most Americans are hoping gets done. That's what Wall Street is waiting for. That's what all these big corporations are waiting for as they put together their plans for the next fiscal year. I mean, what's happening on the deferred action?
You referenced at the top of our conversation is the thing that Donald Trump was elected to be president to do is to create more jobs at better wages. And the Trump White House and Republicans in Congress agree that tax reform is the best policy vehicle to make that happen. So, I mean, that's what should be going on now. In my opinion, I don't think the president had to do this DACA thing. I mean, why not just let those attorneys?
I agree. I loved your column on that. I loved your column. He shouldn't have done anything.
Confident that they were going to win, and then Congress would have to do something about DACA, and the Democrats would be facing off against the courts, not against the president. So anyway, but Trump did it, so he has moved this kind of to a high priority, and the question is whether Republicans get anything for legalizing the current about 700,000 DACA.
No, it's not
recipients.
700. Byron, you know as well as I, we're talking like 2 million people at the lowest. I mean, it's not 700,000 because, mom and dad or second cousin twice removed, who's the sponsor, who's also here illegally, they're all going to get waived in. There's going to be one big waiver coming out of Homeland Security. That's what they were going to do with Janet Napolitano, and that's what they're going to do now. It's going to be one big discretionary move to say, oh, yeah, you and you. Yeah, I know you don't have your papers, your electric bills from 2007, and yeah, we don't have any birth certificate, but all right, you look like you come on in. I mean, that's what's going to happen.
You're saying exactly what Senator Cotton is saying about why the raise bill would have to be part of a DACA deal, because the White House said there's, I think, 690,000 DACA recipients. Yeah. But what Cotton was saying was, well, if you legalize them, they then can bring, under our current system, all sorts of relatives into the United States, and you set off a new chain of chain migration to go with the chain migration that's already going on. So that's one of the foreseeable consequences of legalization, which is why Cotton said, if you're going to legalize, you've got to do something about the chain migration in advance.
Well, I read last night that they're not going to get any border wall funding as part of a DACA deal. So I tweeted yesterday, he better find that money somewhere else, huh? You're gonna be held to pay. You don't get this wall starting, and not just facsimile walls, that he holds up at a press event, but a real wall.
I tell you, I went to a lot of Trump campaign events. And sometimes at the end of the event, after Trump had spoken, for an hour and went all over the place, I would ask people, I said, well, what did he say? I mean, what did you take away? And they would all say three things. They say he's going to bring our jobs back, he's going to build a wall, and he's going to kick the hell out of ISIS. And those are like three things that he really communicated so well, and build the wall was definitely one of those top things. And I agree with you completely. He's got to do it. And people know a wall is not going to be built tomorrow, but it's got to be started today.
Yeah, and I think the folks that came in 2014, some of them, I think they always say the average age was 6 years old, or the average age of the Dreamers today is 22, 23 years old, and they can be as old as 36. So we're not talking about toddlers here. We're talking about adults. So many of them have their own children, now American citizens because of the birthright citizenship fiasco. But I think what we see here is that the Republicans get wound around the axle about this, and it never ends well. It's when they go down this road of, it's going to be comprehensive immigration reform. Well, how is that going to end up? I don't think that never works.
That's a worst-case scenario for this to turn into some sort of comprehensive immigration reform, because members of Congress of both parties do have a chronic case of comprehensivitis. They never can just fix a problem. They have to make some sort of comprehensive solution. But Trump has to actually do this. I mean, as far as building a wall is concerned, he has to actually do it. And Congress has already said several years ago that they do not want comprehensive immigration reform in the style of the Gang of Eight that was done. And clearly, that could not pass Congress right now. It's a crazy thing for them to waste time on.
Byron, they waste precious political capital. Precious political capital and time to push through tax reform. Donald Trump's been tweeting about tax reform more than anything else in the last 24 hours, other than congratulating his son, Eric and Laura Trump, for having their first son, Luke, which is great. But he's been pushing the tax reform nonstop. Mickey Kaus has a really good piece today in the Washington Post, and he said, compared with the general population, Dreamers are not especially highly skilled. A recent survey for several pro-Dreamer groups, with participants recruited by those groups, found that while most Dreamers are not in school, the vast majority work, but their median hourly wage is $15.34, meaning they are competing with hard-pressed, lower-skilled Americans. The Dreamers you read about have typically been carefully selected for their appeal. They're valedictorians, they're first responders, they're curing diseases, they root for the Yankees, they want to serve in the Army. If Dreamers are the poster children for the much larger undocumented population, these are the poster children for the poster children. But taking them as a whole, not just the dreamiest of them, they represent an appealing group of would-be citizens. So why should we not show compassion? And he goes on to talk about the perverse incentives it would create. You sneak into the country, you get to stay, and then it has the knockoff effects, the chain migration rules established back in 1965 that still allow people to bring their family members in, et cetera, et cetera. So finally we're getting some commentary in mainstream publications that will actually, I think, shed some light on this. This was a soundbite, by the way, from Steve Bannon on the DACA issue and how it can split the Republican Party.
I'm worried about losing the House now because of DACA, and my fear is that with this 6 months downrange, if we have another huge, if this goes all the way down to its logical conclusion in February and March, it will be a civil war inside the Republican Party that will be every bit as vitriolic as 2013. And to me, doing that in the springboard of primary season for 2018 is extremely unwise.
I think it's, semi, if not fully suicidal, Byron.
Well, I have to say, it seems to me, and tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I think the most likely outcome is that Congress will pass a clean legalization of every DACA recipient in the country without any other sort of, no wall, no E-Verify, no RAISE Act, nothing to actually compensate for the problems that would cause. Because you have to remember, right now you have the DREAM Act in the Senate, which is co-sponsored by Lindsey Graham and Jeff Flake, and I believe Cory Gardner and Lisa Murkowski have joined on.
None of them will come on the show, by the way. None of these people will come on the show. That's a sure sign that they're working with the Democrats and La Raza on these things. Anyone who doesn't come on the show, they're terrible on this issue.
Yeah, that's 4 Republican senators right there.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you gonna? I mean, Tom Cotton is going to fight hard to get something attached to this, but how's that going to work?
Byron York from the Washington Examiner, always great to have you on. We'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show. GOP senators promise they're going to go back to Obamacare as well. But one thing at a time, boys. Let's get this tax reform done. The president is beyond impatient.
Did you make enough mistakes yourself to lose the election without any of the other things you talk about?
Well, I will say no, Matt. I don't think that will surprise you.
The basket of deplorables. I haven't seen. Has she been asked about the basket of deplorables comment?
Jane Pauley asked her about it. And she said, well, this was a rational explanation of what I saw happening.
Racism, sexism, nativism.
Don't forget misogyny.
Don't forget misogyny. This trips off their tongues so quickly, all the isms and
But to take no responsibility for your failed campaign.
Imagine what I keep thinking, what would she have been like as president? She talks in the book about how McCain hugged her during the inauguration like he was as upset about Trump getting sworn. Imagine the deals those two would have cut.
It was a star-studded gala last night, and they raised $44 million. But here's the curious thing.
It is.
Colbert came out and said, Apple is donating $5 million.
Doesn't he cough up?
Right. Then Jimmy Fallon says Albertsons Corporation and Merck are giving $1 million each.
Well, they trash these corporations, by the way. They trash them for wanting corporate tax reform. Now the corporations are giving money, and it's like, well, Apple's, Tim Cook is a big lefty, but they're all for DACA and all this immigration. However, it always strikes me as like, instead of asking the poor people around the country to throw in some shekels, why don't you just stroke the check yourself?
They could each write a $2 million check, like Sandra Bullock did, by
I've
the
always
way.
liked her.
I
She's
like her,
Texan, too. She's a Texan, that's why.
And she has a house in New Orleans, which I like.
Does she?
Yeah, lives in New Orleans. She and John, what's his name? No, I'm blanking. Was on Roseanne all those years. Now coming back in Roseanne because we're reviving all the old shows again.
No,
John Goodman. John Goodman's in New Orleans. We have great people there.
Oh, God. Here we always go back to the commercial for New
I
Orleans.
know. I'm sorry. I'm working. I'm going to get my sideline up for the tourism commission.
So they're raising money for all these poor people in the Keys. We're doing these flyovers of
It was
Keys.
both Harvey and Irma. They're raising money for both tragedies. But, as always, they had to score a political point.
They can't even leave politics behind. I have a question. Beyonce wasn't there, but she was one of the organizers of it, which is great for her to do this. What was she doing that was more important than being at the telethon? Was she on tour? Where is she?
I don't know. Maybe she's on tour. Maybe
she's on Geffen's yacht over there. I mean, she could have been doing. She could have been in Waiters doing work for all I know. But I thought it was interesting for her to be running the telethon, where she was. She appeared by video.
Well, she couldn't be bothered. They used to do this on the Jerry Lewis telethon, too. The really big acts.
Don't show.
No, I'm not going to the
I'm
Suncoast
not walking
Casino.
by the kid in the wheelchair.
Yeah, forget that. I'll record this in my den and then go back to my dinner party. But Beyonce had this to say.
Who died and made her head of the National Weather Service?
Now she's a climatologist?
Yeah, now she's a meteorologist, climatologist. Does she have a PhD from MIT in climate science? I don't think so. But they're just reading. Whether they're actors just reading lines that someone else wrote, or singers, performers reading lyrics that someone else wrote. This is why I wrote a book called "Shut Up and Sing." We don't want to hear you. We don't want to hear you on politics at all. I don't even like her music at all. She's not my. Oh, remember when what call it was not happy about the way she was saying it last?
Oh, it was Etta James. Etta James was not happy. What the hell is she doing singing my song?
My song. Oh no, Etta didn't like that Beyonce. That wasn't a good deal.
But then Michelle Obama held Beyonce up as if she were this paragon that young women should aspire to.
And the young women should wear S&M outfits and perform in public.
And shove their breasts in people's faces. Yeah. I mean, let's face it, Beyonce didn't get there singing, high opera. She wasn't singing Cole Porter in the cabaret. She was shaking it.
Shaking the stuff. I mean, she's made a lot of money.
Well.
But it wasn't just Beyonce though, right? It was
everybody. It was George Clooney and McConaughey and Julia Roberts and Blake Shelton and Streisand and Colbert and Tyler Perry was there. Everybody in their dog.
He should have showed up as Medea. That would have been funny.
That would have raised a lot of money.
I'm most worried about Hurricane Trump. I don't like that Donald Trump. That would have been funny for Medea to actually go after Trump. That would have been funny actually. If they're going to do it, you have to be funny about it.
All right.
But don't expect. You see, they want red state America
to open
up their wallets and to send it over to make them look good with their telethon as they are trashing red state America and the president that they elected. That's a good point. They're both stretching their hand out for money and slapping you in the face, either with lewd, horrible entertainment or with political statements that are basically in agreement with Hillary being, in the basket of deplorables.
Can we look up who exactly are benefiting from the monies raised?
Planned Parenthood?
I'd like to know which organizations are actually going to make money off of this. I mean, is it going to? I imagine the Red Cross would be. It says it's going to benefit several charities.
Which charities?
But I'd like to know which ones.
Paul Ryan's doing a press conference. Oh, that's our coverage.
Here it is. It's going to United Way of Greater Houston,
United Way
Habitat for Humanity, Save the Children, Direct Relief, Feeding Texas, and the Mayor's Fund for Hurricane Harvey Relief, administered by the Greater Houston Community Fund.
No Samaritan's Purse, get nothing.
No Samaritan's Purse.
No Red Cross.
Also the Diocese of Houston. Also,
Catholics get nothing. You know why? Because they're worried about the gay stuff. They're not going to give it because the gay.
But you see,
the gay lobby doesn't want the Catholic Church to get.
Here's the reality and when you burrow down in these charities, and I would say this to everybody because we all want to help. I wrote checks to the Diocese of Houston as well as Samaritan's Purse. Here's why: these church-affiliated groups. It's direct aid, and they don't have all the administrative bills.
It's like food for the poor.
Right?
95% of all money that goes food to the poor, you write a check to Food for the Poor, goes right to the poor people. 5% for administrative. That's an unbelievable track record. They've been in there for 28 years.
Well, because they already have an infrastructure. But a lot of these last-minute charities, they're building the infrastructure, and then you're spending 50% on administrative costs. It's not getting to the people. So just be wary of that as you send aid. But then, of course, the iconic Motown giant Stevie Wonder opens this event, and people are saying, oh, here we go, we'll look forward, here's Stevie Wonder, it'll be a great musical performance. He offered this prologue.
As we should begin to love and value our planet, and anyone who believes that there is no such thing as global warming must be blind or unintelligent. Lord, Please save us all.
From Trump. Please save us all.
A prayer service at the beginning.
What did he say about blind?
He said you'd have to be blind to not see
that's pretty
climate
funny.
change.
He usually makes blind comments and then he laughs. I mean, I love Stevie Wonder. I mean, he's such a liberal, but I love him.
Great
oh my
talent.
God, what an unbelievable piano player, unbelievable
amazing
guitarist. I mean, the guy, there's no one like him. I mean, he taught himself to play 5 or 6 instruments. He can play every instrument on his record. Incredible. Little Stevie Wonder back in the 1960s showed up with a suit and a narrow black tie and wowed the nation. He's a monster talent. Monster talent.
My favorite was
just don't want to hear about politics.
My favorite was watching Oprah with the "Call Me" fan as she sat waiting for the phone to ring on the phone bank. They got Oprah working the phone bank. They got Streisand.
But can I say this? Oprah actually has a very nice. She has a nice demeanor. She really does. I mean, I know I know people are liberal. I know they are. But versus some of the others, she just has a way with people. Even when she talks about, she hosted a show for, 30 years. I mean, the woman knows how to,
Oprah always had what Trump understood. He had a sense of the people, and so does she. Even though she lives in Montecito and she's, high-flying with all the fancy folks. The fact is, she does have a kind of sensibility for the common man. That was always her strength, and you know what? It's paid dividends because she programs. I mean, her Super Soul Sunday show. How did we get on doing promotions for Oprah?
She would never. She's never had me on once. Not one time. Not one book.
Maybe she'll have you on now. You could be a Super Soul Sunday guest. You could talk about spirituality. I've had friends on that show.
Never will have me on. I don't think so. I have friends that are friends with her. Maybe we'll approach. Maybe we'll make the approach. They're not going to have me on. That's not going to happen. Nick in Georgia on line 1. Nick is on this DACA deal. Paul Ryan's press conference just wrapped up. I hope you enjoyed our coverage of it. Nick, go ahead. I'm just kidding. I'm just not interested. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. I appreciate taking the call. Yeah. Here's the thing. The biggest thing I have a problem with, of course, with Trump is that he doesn't lay out parameters. And I remember how many times Obama giving out a press conference and him sitting there saying, well, I'm not going to sign, I want a bill like this, and I'm not going to sign it has this, and this in it.
Smart.
Trump doesn't do that. But, it's not too smart that Trump doesn't take a cue from that. But
you're right.
But, more importantly, the only way to stop, I heard Byron York and stuff, the only way to stop this type of amnesty, clean amnesty, or whatever you want to call it, is by primarying. So I'm suggesting that everybody out there in Alabama, Nevada, show up in big numbers and sit there and primary them. These people who are so
that's what Bannon's doing. I'm helping some of these efforts. You bet. I mean, and Nick, I'm glad you said what you said about the framework. In my book, toward the end of the book, I don't want to give it away, but we have the lessons for what Trump needs to do going forward. Billionaire at the Barricades. So Billionaire at the Barricades tracks the populist rise of Trump from Reagan on down. Populist elements in what pretty much every president since Reagan, and how they've expressed these populist sentiments, how they've betrayed the populist ideals, and how Trump has an opportunity to really fulfill them. Okay, so toward the end of the book, it's when I give my prescription for success for Trump. It's funny. I was doing the audiobook yesterday. And so many things have happened since I had to put the book to bed in August. I mean, in August, we put the book to bed. We still had stuff from August, and stuff changed. But it's amazing. I did hit that point that Nick just raised. Lay out the 4 things that have to be in Obamacare repeal and barnstorm the country. You're going to see him do this in this 13-state tour. And it's going to be strong and powerful.
One would hope. I mean, this is you had Stephen Moore and Kudlow working on this tax plan. There's a tax plan in place. We already have the framework. Use that.
Let the other ones dance to your tune.
Put the legislative meat on the bone. Say, I'm not going to sign it without X, Y, and Z. And if you want anything else, you're going to have to pass this.
We're going to take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show. I will share with you. I'll take a photo and I'll post it on Twitter and Facebook. So you need to go look at this photo. I'm going to post during the break. Then I'm going to talk about the 2 pieces the Washington Post has on the cover of its Metro section, front page of the Metro section, that talk about blind but they can't see. The juxtaposition of these 2 articles, you won't believe it when we come back. You sent a clear message to the media and the political elites last fall. You wanted new leadership that focused on the middle class, not the political class, on your lives, not theirs. Well, they didn't get the message. They've been working hard since Election Day to block the voice of the people and help Democrats regain control of Congress. My friends, that cannot happen. You voted to drain the swamp, to take money and power away from Washington, D.C., return it to the hardworking people of this country. Well, we better do that. To moms and dads struggling to make ends meet, young workers trying to save for their future. My friends, small business owners looking to grow and hire employees, we all have to go to the website, taxcutsnow.com. Send a letter to your member of Congress to support tax cuts. That's taxcutsnow.com. There's no exceptions, no wiggle room. Get these tax cuts through. Put the pressure on Congress. Go to taxcutsnow.com. That's taxcutsnow.com. The best way to avoid a Nancy Pelosi-led Congress in 2019.
DACA is a symptom of a bigger problem, which is we do not have control of our borders. So while we deal with DACA, which is something that the president has asked us to deal with in Congress, we also had to deal with the problem in the first place, securing our borders, enforcing our laws, so that we don't have another DACA problem 10 years down the road. It's just that clear. That's so common sense and so reasonable. And that is basically what the president has asked us to do.
He says nothing. He speaks and nothing's said.
Well,
this is obvious. Okay, we have news on the border wall. Then I got to get to this Washington Post thing.
Breitbart story breaking at a private dinner earlier this year. Paul Ryan told a group of Republicans that only one person wants a wall. Former Representative Tom Tancredo took issue with the Speaker's characterization of support of the wall. Of course, he means only one person in his entourage of the leadership. I know several people in Congress who want a wall, and I know there are millions of Americans who want that wall. So, according to this, Paul Ryan at the end of June was saying, no chance of the border wall. That's a bad. I'm telling you, this is the beginning of the obit.
This is the billionaire at the barricades. This is why I titled the book this way, because that's one of the barricades in front of him. We have the establishment media. We have the establishment Republicans. We have the far left in the resistance. We have the never Trumpers in the Republican Party. We have the globalists all over the globe. They want to stop the populist charge. They want to stop the idea of sovereignty and independent nations that look out for their own interests. They don't want this. They want an America as part of a global order. This is what they want. They do not like the populist revolution. They don't want any part of it. And they're going to do what they can to stop Trump from real progress. Billionaire at the barricades. You better believe it. By the way, Washington Post, Metro section. Right hand column. I just tweeted this picture out. Go on Twitter. Additional details on slaying tied to MS-13. Prosecutors say members who attacked Virginia man brought cleaning supplies to clean up the gruesome murder. To the left of this article, and I'm going to go through the details of this murder. You're not going to believe this. As clock ticks for DACA, a flurry of action. And it's like a Benetton ad in the photo. You have the Muslim woman, you have Hispanic, you have the Asian woman, and then I don't know who the other people are. Immigrants and advocates are rushing to renew permits and pushing for new laws to allow them to remain in America. Guess what? These MS-13, 21, 23 years old, they qualify as dreamers if they weren't apprehended. Celebrate Constitution Day every September, and I know you value the Constitution and the rights it secures, but do you really know the basics? Look, you can't really celebrate something if you don't understand why you should. That's where my friends at Hillsdale College come in. They want you to know the foundations of your freedoms. So Hillsdale has brought back, for a limited time, their free online course. It's called Introduction to the Constitution. People throw around the word, it's unconstitutional, constitutional. Understand what it means. It's not that difficult. And the great thing is that you can take these courses at the Hillsdale website, lauraforhillsdale.com. You can take the courses. It's about 15 minutes long each, so it's not like you're sitting through hours and hours of impenetrable analysis. No. 15 minutes, you'll come away smarter, happier, clearer in your thinking about this country and what's on the line. All you need to do is go to lauraforhillsdale.com. You can also download the free companion booklet. It's like a course companion booklet. You can share it with friends. It's great. Like, people do book clubs. This is a great way to get together, learn something together, and talk about it. All you do is go to lauraforhillsdale.com, Pursuing Truth, Defending Liberty with Hillsdale College. Sign up while you still can. For a limited time, these courses are back. At Laura for Hillsdale, but Luis Gutierrez ranks right up there near the top. He said at one point, I think a year ago, 2 years ago, he said his mission is to protect immigrants. And he meant illegal immigrants. Like, that's his duty, that's his role, that's his focus. It's not on the American citizens. His goal is to change the electorate, to make it more left-wing, more dependent on government, more democratic with a capital D. It always has been and it always will be. That is the goal of Luis Gutierrez. It's not to follow the rule of law, enforce a border, make sure American citizens can get a job at a decent wage. He's meant to malign anyone who disagrees with him as a racist, anti-immigrant, anti-Hispanic, nativist, pick your poison. That's what Luis Gutierrez does. And when Gutierrez said what he said about General Kelly, in the Kelly comment, nasty. First of all, General Kelly is a Gold Star father losing his son in the military. What? And he said the comment in the Washington Post. And this is where we are right now in Washington, D.C., where you can criticize a Gold Star father if you're a left-wing open borders Democrat.
Yeah, and he said he's diminishing his leadership of the White House and saying he's not a politician, he's a general. So basically, sit down and shut up.
He's not a general anymore. He's a politician. He said he's not a general anymore. He's a politician, so he can criticize him. That's what he said. And is disgracing the uniform he used to wear. Is a disgrace to the uniform he used to wear, because he didn't stop Trump from doing the
thing he promised
DACA
during the campaign.
Yeah, actually what he promised. And so General Kelly responded with this. As far as the congressmen and other irresponsible members of Congress are concerned, they have the luxury of saying what they want as they do nothing and have almost no responsibility. They can call people liars, but it would be inappropriate for me to say the same thing back at them. As my blessed mother used to say, empty barrels make the most noise. The congressman has a right to his opinion. Oh, no. I had the chance to meet General Kelly, spend some time with him last week. What a great man. He is solid. Luis Gutierrez can't hold his coat, okay? Because of men like General Kelly, Luis Gutierrez can spout his nonsense. And I don't know. I would censure him for that comment about General Kelly. A 4-star general? He's a disgrace to the uniform he used to wear? Really? Hate. They always talk about the haters over there at the open borders organizations and people like Gutierrez. Oh, the haters. It's all hate. He sneers when he talks. He's in a perpetual sneer. And by the way, I'm going to read the details after our next guest. This piece in the Washington Post, it's gruesome. Additional details on slaying tied to MS-13. Right next to the piece on how the clock ticks for DACA. You have 6 or 7 illegal immigrants seated in chairs looking really nervous because Donald Trump is their president. This big picture. The big picture isn't the victims of the MS-13 slaying, but the irony of the juxtaposition of the articles, I think, was lost upon the Washington Post. They didn't even understand how ridiculous. The MS-13 killers were dreamers. They were dreamers before they were apprehended. Joining us now, Steve Cortez. He's from the Trump Hispanic Advisory Council, a Fox News contributor. He was on Fox this morning, and I was listening to him on the radio because I wasn't in front of the TV on my way into the studio. And I've got to say, I don't think I've met Steve once, or I can't remember, but I just heard his voice. I said, who is this? This guy is great. Is great. You are fantastic. And I immediately texted Drew. I said, get him on. He's fantastic. Hey, Steve, how are you? How do you like that for an introduction? I'm a tough cookie, too. If I say you're good, you're good.
Right. I will take it. I'll take praise anywhere I can get it. But no, I appreciate you listening, and I certainly appreciate you having me on.
Steve, the comments from Gutierrez themselves were a disgrace, but they are revealing, are they not? This is how they deal with anyone who disagrees with their open borders worldview. If you believe in border enforcement, if you believe in any interior deportation at all for anyone, then you're part of the problem, and you're a disgrace to the uniform you used to wear, apparently.
Right, and they automatically play the racist card. That's almost become the left's version of sort of McCarthyism of, if you disagree with us on policy, we can't debate policy, we're going to call you a bigot immediately. And Luis Gutierrez is probably new to a lot of your listeners. He doesn't have too much of a national profile. Unfortunately for me, I live in Chicago, and I have been watching this guy, cringing watching this guy for decades.
Yep.
He is a race baiter, he's a huckster, he's a political opportunist who's done nothing for his community, done quite a lot for himself. I actually wrote an article about this. He has paid his wife out of his campaign funds, which is legal, but very sleazy. He's paid her $385,000 since 2010 from his campaign committee. So that's the kind of guy he is. That's his honor. And he dares to say that General Kelly, a man who served in our uniform for 45 years, who led the capture of Tikrit in Iraq, who lost his son in Afghanistan, he has the gall.
He should be censured.
He
should be censured for this comment. I think the comment is reprehensible. You just can't. I mean, they all went after Trump for the Khizr Khan comment, which wasn't as I don't think explicit as this criticism of Kelly, by any stretch of the imagination.
No, and we see the double standard there. And by the way, that was one of the few things. I was on TV, mostly opposition interviews, CNN and MSNBC, all during 2016 for the Trump campaign. And the only thing that I really wouldn't defend him on was his interaction with Mr. Khan. I thought that was a big mistake.
He was a plant, but he was a plant, by the way, the Democrat. That was a setup, but Trump stepped right into the trap.
Don't fall for it.
Yeah, he stepped into the trap.
Yeah, and but anyway, there was one of the few things where I really I wouldn't defend the president. I would just concede that was a mistake. But if that was a mistake, then holy cow, is this a mistake? Times 10. And yet I don't hear any fire storm from the left on this one. It's okay to attack this Gold Star dad in horrible personal terms, but why? Only because he happens to be a Republican or works for a Republican administration. So the double standard, is very, very evident. You're right. I think it's incumbent on the House. There are discipline procedures for cases like this. He should be censured, reprimanded, and I also, and this bothers me a lot as an Hispanic, he is maybe the most outspoken member of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. That caucus should also disavow these comments because they're reprehensible, they're disrespectful, and they're just unbecoming of anyone who holds office in this country.
This is something he said recently about the Trump administration, race relations, deportation.
But let's be honest. Do we really want to motivate civic participation through fear of deportation, racial profiling, and families being broken up? These are American teenagers growing up to distrust their government. Trump wants to take us back to the good old days of race relations, which apparently means the 1950s.
Oh, boy.
Well, first of all, they aren't American citizens if they came into the country illegally. There is a rule of law in our country that has been ignored for decades. We've looked the other way because big business wants cheap labor, and Democrats want voters. And some of the churches want people in the pews, and the bishops want the refugee resettlement and immigration money. There's a lot of competing interests to keep these borders open. But they always blur the line between legal and illegal immigration. But that's the type of hateful, nasty rhetoric that is tolerated by the Democrats toward this administration.
Right. And listen, Laura, I would tell you, and you probably don't agree with me, probably a lot of your listeners don't agree with me. I actually do agree with Gutierrez on one thing only, which is that I personally would like to see the DACA. I don't call them dreamers. Americans have dreams too, and they're not kids, as they're constantly called. I think the DACA young adults, though, I do think they're a different category, in my view.
How about the ones that murdered with cleaning supplies and choked off the kids in Fairfax, Virginia? We got a lot of dreamers committed a lot of crimes in this country.
No, I know, but here's my point, Laura, is that we should be able to debate this without resorting to the kind of smears and name-calling and constant accusations of bigotry that the left resorts to. So we can have a rational conversation about this group of people, and should they be treated differently than others.
So do you think their parents should stay too?
No, absolutely not. And DAPA was properly rescinded. They made an adult, willful decision to break our immigration laws. To me, that's a whole different category.
So you think they should be deported?
Yes.
Okay, so the dreamer parents should be sent back to wherever they came from, and the dreamer kids should stay. Should there be anything that the Republicans get in this bargain? Should they get some border wall funding? The RAISE Act? I mean, anything, or we just give blanket amnesty?
All of the above. Yes. No, Laura, believe me, I'm not. Please don't think I'm too soft on this. Even though I do think the Dreamers should be protected. And by the way, it should be a far more rigorous process to decide. And again, I just used the term. I apologize. I don't want to call them dreamers.
Yeah.
That's the less term. These young adults who were DACA protected previously. I believe that we should be far more rigorous about because I think there's a ton of fraud in the program. We're basically just relying on their word about when they came to the United States. So I think there needs to be far more careful vetting that they pay for,
they're not
clearly,
vet.
in my opinion.
Yeah, they're not going to vet.
And then,
Steve.
well,
Steve,
they
no
may
one's
not, but
vetting.
in
We're going to bring an electric bill. How do you vet the kids? They have no ID. This is what Janet Napolitano tried to pull the wool over the eyes of the voters a couple years back. They were smashed back because the people say this is ripe for fraud. You can't prove that you were here since 2007. We know it. You know it. So it's just going to be wave them on through. They'll have someone in their school say they got a B in English and so they should stay. I mean, it's all going to be waved in. No one's going to be denied the right to stay here. But we want to move on from DACA to because I know you're Catholic, right, Steve? And the Pope spoke out at a couple of days ago about DACA and pro-life, and Raymond Arroyo is with us. Go
Hey,
ahead.
Steve, remember when the Pope said, if the president is truly pro-life, he won't break up families. He'll maintain family unity and support DACA. Your reaction to that, was that a fair criticism coming from the Pope to the president?
No, Raymond, I don't think it is at all. And this Pope, quite frankly, when he talks politics, which he does far too often, in my position, he should stick a lot more to doctrine and morality and a lot less to sovereign politics, particularly in the United States. When he does talk politics, I almost never agree with him, and I certainly didn't agree with him on this. Immigration law is clearly not a theological issue. It is a sovereign nation issue. And this Pope, I think, too, talk about sort of majoring in the minors, rather than being pleased that we have a president who is pro-life, who has put Gorsuch on the court,
Exactly.
who will hopefully appoint more pro-life judges. I pray that we get the opportunity to have one or two more seats at least, with a pro-life legacy that would live far beyond the Trump presidency. And it also, instead of praising the Trump presidency for restoring religious liberty, something that was gravely under assault under the previous administration, and most particularly the Little Sisters of the Poor. So let's not major in the minors, even if he happens to disagree on DACA. Let's focus on the large life and religious liberty issues where Trump's record is unimpeachable. And I would, the Pope's not going to listen to me, Raymond, but my advice would be stay out of our partisan politics.
Mm-hmm. No, I think
because when he does, he brings, unfortunately, a Marxist Latin American agenda that is not particularly Catholic, by the way, in my estimation, but I think reveals a bias from his past that's really unfortunate and does a disservice to the church.
Fantastic analysis. Steve, we'll be watching this in the weeks and months to come and understanding that there could be a barricade in front of the president to his success if he does DACA and gets nothing for it. If you do an amnesty, which is a clean amnesty, no strings attached, I think Bannon is right. I think that a lot of these people have been suffering under globalization and these open borders are going to be really ticked off. The homeless veterans should be put before the illegal immigrants, and I think the president has to address that concern. I really appreciate your perspective. Steve Cortez, Fox News contributor, Trump Hispanic Advisory Council. We have a lot more to get to on the Laura Ingraham Show. The Equifax breach, 143 million people impacted. I'm going to tell you how you can check to see if, after it was announced that Equifax, right? Is that what it's called? Equifax had 143 million potential breaches of personal information, social security numbers, names, addresses, so forth. They now have set up a website. So you go to EquifaxSecurity2017.com. You can get protection there, but then you go to the next link that they have on their site, and you put in your information. And, of course, then it gives you a sense of whether you may have been breached or not. Guess whose enrollment has gone way up over the last 24 hours? Huh. LifeLock. LifeLock stock and sign-ups. They're one of our great advertisers, through the roof, because people see, oh, my goodness, this is terrible.